So I've been doing this for now a couple of years, more than a couple of years actually, coming to actually 2 years and a half now that I think about it. And in parallel, I've also built the FMCG Guys podcast, which I run in parallel to my headhunting business. I actually started as a part-time intern. So basically working the afternoons after university, helping basically with database management, research, also doing analysis on the searches we're doing. It was a great way to learn the business. So after that less than a year, probably like 10 months of internship, I finished college and they decided to hire me and I wanted to work in headhunting. So that's how it all started, right? So I spent 4 years in my first firm. There, doing senior consultant work. I also managed internal talent acquisition for a while, so it was a good environment at the time to get a lot of different experiences. It was a company of around 10 people, so you got a lot of exposure. After that, I actually joined another firm as the employee number 2, and that's where I started also doing business development. Then I decided to start my own firm. Basically, I ended there at the end of 2019, beginning of 2020, and started my own firm in March 2020, which was right at the time where the global pandemic was starting. So basically, when everybody went into lockdown, I was starting my own business. So what would it have been? Probably like 10 months or 9 months after starting my own business in March 2020. I had done some podcasts with my firm before, so that was an interesting thing that I had done. I wasn't sure when I started my business if I still wanted to do a podcast, but after like 9 months of the business, I decided it could be a good idea, but in a different format of what I had done before. Before I did very short and very prepared interviews, I wanted to do more like a free-flowing conversation type interview, even if it were like with business leaders, right? We have conversations that went more deep into people, and that people could see what's the person behind that FMCG or retail leader that they see, right? So that's how it started. And a bit more than a year later, I teamed up with my current co-host, Efrain Rosario, and we converted the podcast that was running into what it is currently, which is the FMCG Guys. That was actually born as the European version of a very successful podcast in the US, which is the CPG Guys. So there's a few things that have definitely changed. And as you mentioned, the pandemic has been obviously the bigger, most notorious catalyst of change, if you like. So there's still a lot of things that are evolving in consequence of the pandemic. So for example, the working from home and working from abroad policies are changing the ways companies are changing the way that companies have to build their culture. So that's really still work in progress. That's, I think, something that's gonna keep on evolving in the next few years, and it affects all industries, but obviously affects FMCG and retail. And from a pure consumer goods industry analysis point of view, I think that the main drivers of change and the underlying drivers of change right now are, as I said, the impact of the digitalization on e-commerce, already happening before the pandemic, obviously, as the cliche says, and probably rightly says, the pandemic made happen in 3 months what would have happened in 3 years. So that's still ongoing. We have a lot of questions again around direct to consumer. There's a big opportunity around data out there, which will be a big currency in the future. Another trend that we would see happening before, I don't think it's going to stop anytime soon, is the emergence of smaller brands. For example, digitally native brands, direct to consumer brands that are disrupting some categories. And then at the same time, we have large companies divesting parts of them. So we had, for example, recently Unilever divesting Ekaterra, their tea division, GlaxoSmithKline divesting Haleon, their consumer business. And finally, a trend that we've seen, and it's an interesting one as well, is private equity becoming more and more active and present in consumer goods than they were before. Definitely. I mean, that's the thing, right? You don't need to be a coder. You don't need to know how to program, but I think that it will be more and more necessary to understand what enabling technologies will actually help you drive success. So, for example, I think that when it comes to in-store execution, we're used to a very traditional framework. We talk about trademarking, category management, etc. The fundamentals don't change, but every time there's more and more technology available to make that easier. So, for example, the kind of stuff that Infilect does with AI, that could potentially be a game changer. Understanding more and more the customer journey in store, how they act, that can make brands win more and more. I think if I think of my experience going to the supermarket, because me myself, I don't buy online I don't buy groceries online. I like going to the store always. I haven't seen any really upgrade. If I think to the experience that I've had in store since I was a child, it's all pretty much the same. There's not a very big change. So I think that there's a lot that could be done there. I think that another way that business leaders can leapfrog in terms of their technological capacities in-house is actually to see what these more consumer-centric, direct-to-consumer brands are doing. As I said, these brands are born with the consumer in mind and in their heart, and that's something that big companies can lose sight of because they're very internally focused. And so from a consumer-centric point of view, one, and then from a capability standpoint of route to market, direct to consumer, that can be a big change agent as well. Yeah, I think that challenger brands, I wouldn't say that they're here to stay, which some of them are, but I don't think that they'll stop. There's going to be a stop in terms of new brands coming out, right? So I think that what technology enables is that smaller brands can develop quicker, and the digital store in general, retail, like digital retailers, but just the possibilities that online offers, just enables smaller brands to appear quicker and quicker, right? And then we have also social media. So technically, you don't even need to have a website to be able to sell something online. So I don't think there's going to be a stop to that. What can big companies do? Well, I think it's going back to being customer-centric, to their brand being relevant to their consumers. And that necessarily means technology adoption, learning from smaller businesses, but also internally being flatter and being able to make decisions quicker and not being so internally focused and bureaucratized. I think that it's basically going to be around understanding consumers better, be it online and offline. I think that AI can do a lot in terms of understanding consumer behavior in store, but also online. And I'm sure they're going to find a lot of parallels, because if you think about it, until now, we've treated these channels as two very different animals, and practically as if a person was totally only going to buy on one and totally only going to buy on the other. So probably by understanding consumers' behaviors in store, we're going to be able to sell online much better, and vice versa as well. So I think that that's probably what excites me more, to see really how stores evolve. Physical stores as a physical store shopper, stores evolve into that direction. No, as I mentioned before, I think that image recognition and in-store AI can be a game changer. I mean, we have to think that physical purchases are still a majority in consumer goods, and I mean, basically when it comes to grocery shopping, supermarkets, and that probably won't change for the foreseeable future. So how are brands going to maximize the possibilities in store? Well, I think that AI and image recognition can be one of the main ways to actually disrupt that and be more successful in store. I'm a very outgoing and extroverted person. So whatever gets me out of the house and brings me with people I like. So I would probably say meeting my friends and doing different social activities, from traveling and hiking to sitting in a bar or different bars until late hours at night. I'm from Barcelona. We like going out late. So something that, but we also like the beach and the outdoors and the mountains. So these are all things I like doing, but always in good company if possible.
Okay.
For me, it's very important. I've been the happiest and I felt the most complete when I've been authentic. And I would say I'm quite a transparent and authentic person, and also true to myself. So behaving according to my values, I think is super important. And whenever I felt more fulfilled is when I've done that, and less fulfilled when I have not done that. So that's it. Yeah. First of all, the fact that I work in an industry that I love. I think that I really like the brands and consumer goods and retail. So that's something always very exciting. And there's always something to learn about the people that I speak with. I'm very fortunate to work with very smart people, and that's something I've really always aspired to. And secondly, the fact that I'm building a business that I can build according to my values, my principles, and where I can make an impact on people's business and life. But as I said, being authentic and true to myself.